Hey there, I'm Jason Wiley, and welcome to our primary coverage, the primary runoff coverage here, Vote 2020 here in Texas. We have a entire crew with us. Bud Kennedy's getting his camera set up here if you're watching it. Abby Livingston, the D.C. Bureau Chief for the Texas Tribune, is next to me here on the 4 box. We have Bernadine Steptoe, the political producer at WFAA, and of course, Bud Kennedy is trying to get back online here, connecting to audio. In this age of COVID, you know, this is kind of how it works. So we're all sitting at our houses. Abby's in D.C. at her place. Bernadine's at her place. I'm at mine. And we're trying to get Bud back up here right now. But the big race tonight, statewide, the biggest race in the state on this primary runoff is going to be for the Democratic Senate race. This is MJ Hegar versus Royce West. So let's go ahead with the statewide numbers we have. This is statewide. I'm not sure where this is from in the state. 1% reporting right now. MJ Hegar, 67%. Royce West, 33%. Now, we have a lot of windows open here on our computers, and we're looking at different counties. I have Dallas County up. So let's start kind of bouncing around here. I want to get everyone's take on this. In Dallas County, everyone expected Royce to do well in his home county. Royce has 58,000 votes in Dallas County compared to MJ Hegar, 23,000 votes. Bud, you just saw Tarrant County. Tell us about that.
Well, it looks like in Tarrant County, West is just barely ahead. It's a close race in Tarrant County. And then we're looking at some of the other elections. I mean, obviously the Fort Worth crime tax looks done. Fort Worth votes in their $80 million crime tax, 65-35. But it's really going to be neck and neck between Hegar and West across the state. Hegar wins Bexar County big tonight. And
that's interesting because, Abby, let's talk about that. Going into this, MJ Hegar had, it seems like more of an organization statewide. She had more money. She had endorsement from the folks in D.C., some of the folks in D.C. Are you surprised at all that Royce West has really had a campaign renaissance in the past few weeks, and despite being, way under on fundraising, has really come back?
Well, I mean, that fundraising has been amazing. So when you take all of the groups that supported Hegar and her own campaign, the spending as of last week was about, for every dollar Royce West spent, there was $85 in advertising for MJ Hegar. So it is extraordinary if he's able to be in the hunt this much. I think the world has changed. I also would just point out, I've covered Texas politics a long time, and some of the most reliable voting blocks in the state are the African-American voters. I've covered it in East Fort Worth, and these are folks who take it very seriously and come out. So I'm not entirely surprised, but I would also caution it's very early in the night.
That's what we should have prefaced this entire feed with is what? It's 7:12. It's super early. Bernadine, your reaction to this, because when just before we went on there, when that countdown clock was moving down, I think Bud mentioned some numbers here, and you were like, "Woo, might be a long night."
Well, I think that's true. And as you mentioned the African-American vote earlier, the Dallas Morning News did a poll last week, which showed over a third of African-Americans were undecided, which was interesting. So what's the new numbers now?
Yeah, let's go ahead. While Bernadine's talking, let's go ahead and show the new numbers that we have up here. Bernadine, go ahead. This new numbers, again, this is statewide. 21% now reporting, and Royce West, 53% of the vote. MJ Hegar, 47% of the vote. So Bernadine's kind of like we were talking. Let's go ahead and leave the numbers up here in case folks are just now clicking on our feed.
But Jason, if I can correct, Tarrant County is 60-40 for Royce West. So okay, it's not as close. Royce West is winning Tarrant.
He's winning Tarrant. He's winning Dallas, these are expected. Bernadine, I think Abby mentioned that Bexar County, San Antonio, looks pretty close and might go to MJ.
Which is, I think that I'm interested in Travis County as well, because that's where MJ is. She should do well there. But as I was saying earlier, during the last poll that we saw, the African American vote, there were just too many undecided voters there. Over 30% of voters, period, were undecided. So what we're looking at now is where those undecideds actually voted and where they're going. But as you say, it's an early night. And we don't necessarily know where these votes are coming from, but I would watch Travis County as well.
Yeah, and that is important to note. The statewide numbers you guys are seeing on your screen here, 21% of the vote. Not exactly clear what part of the state these are coming from, since we're juggling so many different windows here. I'm juggling so many different windows. Let's go around here, and Bud and Abby, I want to hear from you guys as well. What are you watching for tonight in the primary runoff? Abby, let's start with you.
You know what I'm watching for is turnout. It just looks like it's a lot. And these summer runoffs are traditionally low intensity affairs. It's hot. People usually don't come out when the runoff gets kicked to the summer. And let's see what the Democratic turnout is, because that can really be some strong indicators for the fall, on top of the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, so that people are still coming out to vote.
Bud, how about you? What are you watching for tonight?
I think turnout is the big story. And, you know, the last time we had a midsummer runoff like this in a presidential year was 2012. A fellow named Ted Cruz was nominated as the Republican nominee for Senate over David Dewhurst, who had led the first go-around. You know, that whole runoff election, there were only about 1 million votes cast in the Republican primary. There were 1 million votes cast between the two parties before we got to election day today. This is a very heavy turnout for a middle of July, and whoever comes out of this Democratic race will have a lot to build on for the fall.
Bernadine?
Well, I'm for the turnout as well, but we shouldn't be surprised because the early voting, the turnout was high anyway. So we shouldn't be surprised there. But I want to look at where the demographics are, because whoever ends up winning and how much they won in terms of the African-American vote, in terms of the independent vote, I'd like to look at those numbers, because that's going to be telling for Cornyn. See, I'm sure that Cornyn is looking at this election as well, because remember, he was in it. Yeah. He had advertising, he did polls. So I'm really, really interested to see where those numbers are coming from tonight as well.
And let's talk turnout for a moment here. And let me just, if you're watching our feed here, let me just let Brandon and Sandra, our producer and director, know. If you guys get new numbers, go ahead and throw them up here on screen so we can talk about them even if we're in the conversation. So here's 24%, a few numbers, a few more percentage points, a few more polling places rather, have reported to the state. So about a quarter of the votes are in right now. And Senator West, 52%, MJ Hegar, 48%. Let's talk turnout. Everyone's watching turnout. And, you know, the Democrats were bragging, Texas Democrats bragging this afternoon about the huge turnout. So a little more than 1 million Texans voted in this, was like 6%, I think, of all registered voters. And Bud, the Democrats, Texas Democrats, had 650,000, I think, total votes, which was 250,000 more than Republicans. But the Democrats have 2 statewide races on the ballot, and Republicans don't.
Well, last time, you know, I was talking a minute ago about that 2012 election, the last time we had the Senate race in the presidential year. Well, that year, the Democrats only had 240,000 voters in their entire runoff. Paul Sadler got the nomination over Grady Yarborough. This time, they had 3 times that many early votes. So, you know, the trend and definitely the energy of these two campaigns has turned out a lot of Democratic voters. I think what's more important, though, looking back, is that it was Cruz's momentum as a Republican, as a Cruz momentum that built right on into November, and whichever Democrat comes out will have that same kind of momentum.
Yeah, let's. There are other races we're watching, but this is obviously the biggest race. We have 2 different reporters who are covering the race. We have Marie Saavedra and Damon Fernandez. Marie is covering MJ Hegar, and Damon is covering Royce West. Marie, let's start with you. And this is all virtual tonight. You're not out at a watch party with these candidates. They're not having one. They're having a virtual watch party.
That's right. The watch party is right here at my house, just me and a computer, but we're making it work, as so many supporters of the candidates are tonight. MJ Hegar is hosting a virtual watch party that's starting at about 8:45 tonight. We were told that she voted early. She actually voted last Thursday, and that was something that the campaign tells me they were really pushing people to do because of concerns about turnout and people not necessarily wanting to go to the polls because they are worried about contracting coronavirus. So they were encouraging people to go early. They're They're curious to see what the numbers are going to be out today. But this push went all day right down to the wire. The Hegar campaign had a group that was doing phone banking this afternoon. They were encouraging people to get out there if they had already voted to thank them for that. Her message to the people that were phone banking for her was to tell people that they call that she is, quote unquote, one of us, really marketing herself as a homegrown Texan, a working mother of two, a veteran, pushing that as a reason why she should be the opponent to John Cornyn, posing herself as different from him in so many ways. We want to give you a sense of how she's feeling today, and this is what she told those people who were phone banking for her today on that Zoom call.
We are confident, but not overconfident. And I keep telling people, I keep reminding folks on my team that I was shot down on a very routine, supposedly safe mission. So I don't take anything for granted at this point.
That certainly was her attitude the entire time we heard from her today. Really appreciative, but also curious to see results come in. I think part of this, as you guys were talking a little bit about earlier, is the world has changed in many ways since that initial primary race. So even though she was the leader out of that, she knows that things could change, and she's looking at these big cities to determine, where State Senator West has advantages, where she has advantages, which is in several parts of South Texas and Central Texas. So she's hoping that wider group is going to turn out for her tonight, both from suburbs, and she's hoping that she's pulled in some city voters as well. So for more on her competitor, I want to send it over to my colleague, Damon Fernandez, who is watching the West campaign tonight.
Hey there, Marie. I don't think that Senator West's confidence is wavering at all right now. All day long he's been telling us that he feels pretty good going into this runoff election. He and his supporters have been hitting the streets and hitting the phones all day long, trying to get as many people out to vote as possible. Senator West is a longtime politician and very well known across North Texas. He was among those who stood out in that crowded field during the primary, and he's been able to get some sound endorsements, as you guys have mentioned already. But he hasn't yet raised as much money as his Democratic opponent, MJ Hegar. Now, for more than a month now, one thing that we've seen some momentum and renewed interest in getting people registered and out to vote. And that's partly because of civil justice, social justice, and racial justice demonstrations that we've seen across North Texas, across the state, and across the country. Where people have been hitting the streets in protest and boycotting to get corporate America's attention. And Senator West has been in the streets with those people at many of those demonstrations, pushing for change. Earlier today, he told us protests and boycotts are among the tools residents have in this democracy in order to be engaged. Here's what he had to say.
We have the ability to change the structure of government by voting, which is the most potent tool that we have at our disposal. And so if you don't use that most potent tool that we have at our disposal, don't complain.
And as we've mentioned already, this pandemic has us in new territory, and Senator West will also be holding virtual updates and appearances throughout the night. Now, one controversial thing I do want to ask him about are those slam ads that Republican Senator John Cornyn recently published about Senator West. Some critics are saying that they were unfair and that it missed the mark, and some critics are also saying that those ads, in turn, put some people who may not have been decided or were decided before it flipped, and may have sent those folks to the polls in support of Senator West. And we'll be asking him about that, and we'll keep you posted throughout the night. Jason?
All right, Damon, thank you. Brandon and Sandra, let's take the latest results here after we heard from Damon and Marie. I just noticed there's an update. 41% of the precincts now reporting statewide. And Royce West, 163,000. He is in the lead in this. As I look at the vote, the places that have turned it in, Dallas County has, Rockwall has, Denton County has. Tarrant hasn't turned its vote in yet. Harris County has. Montgomery is reporting its vote. We haven't seen Travis County report its vote, and we haven't seen Bexar County report the vote too. I guess here's a question I have: if Royce West does well, Abby and Bud and Bernadine, if Royce does well in the urban centers, clearly MJ has to do well in the rural areas and the suburban areas too. But who has the advantage in either of those?
Well, the big counties are Harris and Travis in the Democratic primary. After that, Dallas, Tarrant, and Bexar. So, we expect MJ to do well in Travis. We'll see how Harris comes out. But if Royce does well, it means that John Cornyn's ads are successful, because the reason John Cornyn is running ads against Royce West is because he wants to run against Royce West in the fall. He doesn't want that buzzsaw of a campaign from MJ Hegar coming at him.
Abby?
Well, what I can tell you, one takeaway from this, if West comes out, is in the past, I can look at almost any congressional race and say, if it's federal and if there's a real lopsided ad spending dynamic going on, that person's going to win. That's just how powerful television is in American politics. If he upends her, this is a really, really big deal in how campaigns work going forward. And I think it's going to have a lot of implications going into the fall, and a lot of decisions in Washington are going to be made. There's a lot of groups that are eager to spend on behalf of Hegar, and I think the question is, would they spend on behalf of West? But we're still early in the night.
Yeah, that's a good point. Two good points there, too. Bernadine?
Well, I think that one difference is you have a seasoned sitting state senator, which makes a difference. And he has been in office so long, and he has traveled the state. It's not like he's a new candidate who's coming in with no money. So, and then he has all of these endorsements now. Sometimes endorsements don't matter, but when you get money and work, turnout efforts with those endorsements, they do help. But I think that in this case, with Royce West being a sitting state state senator who has been in office for so long, it's not as if he's an unknown candidate, which Hegar had to build. She had to build that name and that recognition.
Something else you did see here, too, was a lot of Democrats rallying around Royce West. You saw a lot of other Democrats coming out in Royce's favor, the traditional Democratic establishment endorsing him in the runoff that didn't take a side in the first go-round.
Well, and also, I know it's early, but if Royce does win, I think that Cornyn made a calculated mistake, because those ads, that's all I've been hearing about, and they were in a negative way, because they were painting this African-American male again as this fearful human being. Don't go vote for him because you should be afraid of him. So I think that that we'll see, but as we say, it's early. So, but who expected for him to come out this strong, this early?
Yeah, indeed so. And as Abby points out, he is clearly the underdog, as we talked about earlier in here. But there are a few other races we're also watching tonight besides this one. So let's look at another one that we're watching. This is former Dallas Congressman Pete Sessions, a Republican who was defeated by Colin Allred 2 years ago. He is running again, and he is running down in Waco, Bryan, College Station area. And Pete Sessions was the lead vote getter on Super Tuesday, and with a quarter of the precincts reporting now, it looks like the former congressman, he's leading, but maybe going back to Congress. Bud, does this surprise you? Abby, does this surprise you at all with a quarter of the precincts reporting?
Sessions should be winning in this. He should win, but it was going to be close. But there was a lot of Republican establishment that fell in on his side, even though Congressman Flores had sided with Renee Swan in that race.
Abby?
I'm not entirely surprised. Some of the Dallas-Fort Worth media market spills into this district. And so a lot of operatives were truly stunned by how high his name ID was going into this brand new district. He was born in Waco, but it is 100 miles to the south of where he was originally based. And so his name ID and how many voters knew his name really struck a lot of Republican observers.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that. Bernadine?
Well, I agree with Abby. Matter of fact, I read her excellent story.
TexasTribune.com.
Yes, it was excellent. But remember, this is Pete Sessions.
Yeah.
Pete Sessions is a pro at campaigning. Pete Sessions won his first campaign that he won. Remember, he beat out an incumbent. So it isn't new for Pete Sessions. He just went in knowing what to do.
And of course, this is a very red district, unlike District 32, which he lost 2 years ago to Colin Allred up here in North Texas. And then finally, let's go to the other one of the other races we're watching pretty closely here. This is a Democratic race for Congress's Kenny Marchant's seat, the one he is retiring from. And Candace Valenzuela, the school board member from Carrollton Farmers Branch, she is leading right now, Kim Olson, 56 to 44%. And this is a little less than half of the precincts reporting so far. Kim has really kind of blanketed the airwaves lately, and she also ran for ag commissioner. She has I would think a pretty decent name ID after both of those, but she is trailing here, Bud.
This is the real barn burner. And of course, Olson led very easily in the first go round. Valenzuela, barely made the runoff. But since then, a lot of progressive groups have come in for Valenzuela, a lot of national money. Annie's list, there are people that feel like she has the personality, the kind of Colin Allred kind of appeal to flip that district blue. People feel like that she can motivate progressive voters in a way that Kim Olson, with her moderate appeal living in Colleyville, might not be able to flip the district against the Republican nominee, Beth Van Duyne.
Any surprise here, Abby, considering whichever one wins tonight, whichever Democrat, Kim Olson or Candace Valenzuela, they will face Beth Van Duyne, the former Irving mayor. Any surprise there so far on the Democratic side?
I'm not terribly surprised given how much support Valenzuela has gotten from national groups. What I will say, just to underscore this, it is a surprise this race is competitive, given that it was drawn to be Republican. This race, this district is ground zero for the question of, is Texas changing? And so it will answer that question on election night.
Yeah, a lot of Democrats really think there's a real opportunity here. And remember, Kenny Marchant won this district by a couple of points, and he had been, winning it by a less and less margin every 2 years. So that's a very good point. Bernadine, you're smiling at me here.
Oh, I'm just agreeing with everyone.
Any surprise there that Candace Valenzuela is leading Kim Olson, considering?
Not. Absolutely
not at all,
not.
huh?
She showed the energy. She was out there before COVID-19, but she's campaigning hard. And then the times are changing.
Yeah.
The times are changing, and she just might happen to be the right candidate in the right place.
And to respond to what Abby said, I mean, that race isn't about Texas changing; it's about Irving changing and Carrollton changing, and about the District 24 changing. That's changed to more of an urban district than a suburban district.
And urban is definitely changing. Definitely
So. It's 7:30 right now. Here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to do these little digital cut-ins at the top of every hour. 7 o'clock, the one we just did. We're going to do one at 8, and then we're going to come back at 9 o'clock too, or maybe just before, when we expect MJ Hegar to potentially address her supporters virtually as well. So we're going to end this stream right now, and we're going to come back at 8 o'clock and give you a few minutes to get clicked in and logged in here too. So we hope you'll join us back here in about a half hour. Thanks. Hey there, I'm Jason Wiley. It is 8 o'clock, and as promised, we are back with another update for the primary runoff results. I am here with Abby Livingston next to me in our little 4-box. Bernadine Steptoe is below me in the Brady Bunch box we have, and Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram is with us as well. So let's, since we last saw you a half hour ago, we've been watching the Senate race here because it's not a runaway by either candidate. Sandra and Brandon, let's go ahead and show the latest results we have. These are statewide numbers here, and they have been updated a little since this, but MJ Hegar slightly in the lead, leading by about 15,000 votes over Royce West. You know, a lot of people thought this might be a blowout early on. The past few weeks, the state senator, Royce West from Dallas, has proven that's not the case. What are you surprised about tonight, Bud?
You know, this is shaping up now as Austin, San Antonio, and how much turnout there was for Hegar. The Democratic turnout is really going to be the key. Royce seems to unify DFW, and the numbers in Houston, and particularly the numbers in Austin, Bear. And, it comes down to local elections. Bear's having the local races there. Austin's having a local state Senate election. Some of those local voters are also voting in that Senate race.
Abby, what do you think about these numbers so far? I wasn't sure which way it would go, and no one was calling this, but it's a lot tighter than I think a lot of people expected.
I will say this. I think it startled a lot of Texans how hands-on Washington Democrats have been in this race. I've covered Senate races in other states. This is not unusual. This is what Democrats in the Senate do. If he's able to overcome that doesn't happen very often in American politics. It would really be sort of a going after the Death Star kind of thing. But we're still early. It seems like it's going to seesaw back and forth. The one thing I will also caution is during the 2018 Senate race on election night, Beto O'Rourke, Ted Cruz, it looked very, very lopsided for Beto O'Rourke early in the night. And I left to go run an errand, and I came back to my computer about 30 minutes later, and the results had completely turned for Cruz. And the reason is rural votes take longer to count. So that's another thing to watch for tonight.
You are the DC bureau chief for the Texas Tribune. What in the world did you have to do on election night with one of the biggest races? I've got to know now.
I had to go do an affiliate hit, so I was doing an Austin one. So I'm doing what I'm doing now. So.
Yeah, so you were still working. It's not like you're running an errand, going out to pick up any Cokes. Bernadine, what's your reaction to this so far? It looks like we have, we're getting another update right now, but it looks like that Royce, it looks like it's going to be a close race. And Vince Leibowitz came out, who is a political consultant for Royce West, and said they expect this to be a long night.
Well, with the turnout, perhaps it will be. And I think that it is a lot closer than some thought, especially if you looked at the polls that came out that showed Hegar so far, double digits at a certain time. So I think that the closeness is a surprise, but it will be a long night because you have to count every vote. And the turnout has been huge for a runoff election.
And as we're having a conversation about this specific race, the Democratic runoff for U.S. Senate, we are waiting to hear from someone on the Royce West campaign. Vince Leibowitz came out about a half hour ago virtually and said it would be a long night, said he'd try to do another update at 8 o'clock. If he does chime in here, then we will listen in on that feed as well. Let's switch off to the Democratic race. The runoff for District 24. This is a congressional district. This is the one that Kenny Marchant is retiring from, the seat he's retiring from in Dallas County. And Candace Valenzuela, who is a school board member at Carrollton Farmers Branch, she was kind of the underdog in this. Kim Olson had a little bit maybe higher name ID. She clearly had more money. She had been spending a lot of money on ads, but so far with at least half the precincts reporting, the school board member, Candace Valenzuela, is clearly ahead by 2,500 votes. Any surprise, Bud?
Well, she continues to build her lead. This is an occasion where delaying the runoff from May till July helped her considerably and just helped her build momentum. But those TV ads, that barrage of TV ads the last few days has really turned it. Olson's campaign started falling apart when she made some poorly worded comments about the protests that made it seem like she supported violence. you would just slip. She was supposed to be the moderate, who was the one who had the better chance to win, and she just started. Her chances started slipping away. The other thing is that the progressives and the people who are really intense are the ones who are going to go out and vote. This is true in this kind of a runoff in either party. You have the real small, intense, agitated activists who are the ones voting. They're more likely to be for Valenzuela than for a moderate.
Do you think that the comment she made, Abby, did that really impact her campaign? And for people who aren't familiar, I think that Kim Olson said something about burn it down when the protests were happening, if that's what it takes to get attention. She said some comments similar to that. How impactful was that? Actually, you know what, Abby, before you start, Vince Leibowitz is now speaking from Royce West campaign. Let's listen in here for a moment.
Shows us coming in behind MJ Hegar. However, there's still a lot of votes out there to be counted, particularly in the places that are strongholds for Senator West. So we continue to believe that we're very well in contention tonight. We believe that the race remains too close to call and probably will remain that way through most of the night as we wait to see what else comes in and reports. I was hoping to have Jeff Dalton, our campaign director, on with us for the 8 o'clock update, but I have not seen him pop in yet. As soon as he becomes available, I will bring him over to visit with you guys. If you are still seeking a one-on-one, please email Vince at roycewest.com, and we'll do the best that we can to accommodate those. And I'll be visiting with you guys again in about 10 minutes.
That was Vince Leibowitz, a political consultant for the Royce West campaign. A couple things he said: there are a lot of votes still to be counted, and still, reiterating it's too close to call. Abby, you've mentioned multiple times it's still early in the night. It's 8:07. Polls have been closed for an hour and 7 minutes so far here, and this could be a close race.
Here's what's fascinating to me. I've covered Texas Senate races cycle after cycle after cycle, and barely the Democratic candidates haven't even mattered. It's a primary that people like me completely ignored, and we have this wild primary that people care about, and that is an extraordinary development in Texas politics.
That's a great point too, Bernadine. You're shaking your head. You've seen a lot of these cycles, Bernadine.
Well, and especially in a runoff. Usually in a runoff, the numbers fall and people barely come out. And then to have a race that's too close to call, it's just amazing. And I think that it's going to give us a very, very competitive and exciting race in November.
And Bud,
Jason, Jason, I think this is going to be Hegar's race. I think West is not drawing enough in Harris County right now. Hegar's winning Harris. Something like 52-48, something like that. Hegar is going to win the Valley. She's winning the El Paso early by like 2/3. She is going to win a strong amount of the Latino vote in Austin and Bexar County. I think this is going to wind up being Hegar's at the end of the night.
And here are the results one more time here. Hegar is leading right now with 15,000 vote lead, 51% to 49%. It is still a close race. And Bud, as you were saying that, we just got an email from the Hegar campaign saying that they were going to push back her virtual address to supporters from 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock. So it seems like that they too are waiting to see how this shakes out, but she is indeed in the lead. Royce West was supposed to come out and speak about 9:20. Now, whether that actually happens or so in about an hour and 10 minutes, we're going to wait and see. We're going to break away from this feed, come back at 9 o'clock and hopefully hear, maybe a few minutes after 9, and hopefully hear from the state senator. We'll have some more updates and see what's happening with that race. We're going to look back at Pete Sessions' race as well, too, the former congressman in Dallas who's now running down in Waco, Bryan College Station. We'll look at the Candace Valenzuela, Kim Olson race as well. So a lot more to talk about. See you back here at the top of the hour. All right, it is 9 o'clock. We promised to come back with another update on the primary runoff results and the races tonight. Bernadine, before we get going here, you're on mute. Don't forget to take yourself off so we can hear you as we get going. We just, at the top of the hour here, we want to talk about our biggest race of the night. This is the U.S. Senate race in the Democratic runoff, and MJ Hegar is leading Royce West by about 31,000 votes. 52% she has to Royce West's 48%. This is about half of the precincts reporting so far in the state. Let's come back out to the panel here. I want to run around Robin. If you're just now joining us for this cut-in, we've been doing them all night. But below me here on these little boxes is Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Next to Bud is Abby Livingston. She's the DC bureau chief for the Texas Tribune. And above Abby there is Bernadine Steptoe. She is a political producer at WFAA. And Bud, let's start with you. What's your reaction to how close this is so far tonight?
Well, it is still too close to really call. I think that Hegar will show up as the winner in the rural counties. I think that Hegar will continue to lead. I don't see where Royce is going to get a few more votes later tonight, but I might be surprised. There might be some urban vote out there that still needs to come in.
Well, that's the big question I have too, Abby. Where else does he get these votes? We heard from Vince Leibowitz a few moments ago before we came on this feed, and Vince was saying that there's still half the vote out in Harris County in Houston. But when we look at the Houston numbers down there, it's pretty neck and neck in Harris County. Can he overcome this 31,000 vote deficit?
I think it gets a little harder. They are pushing East Texas and Dallas County to some, but I think we're starting to look toward the suburbs, and we will see. But I think MJ Hegar has some breathing room, much more so than an hour ago. But Texas is a big state, and we were going to have to wait and watch.
Yeah, that's a good point. It looks like she probably does have some breathing room. Bernadine, when we look at the suburbs, who's performing better in the suburbs so far? Is it Royce or is it MJ?
Well, I think it depends on where you are in the state. But I do think that it's too early to call. But she has some breathing room. She has sort of gotten a point where it's not as close as Royce. Royce doesn't want it this close, to be honest with you.
I can't imagine he would. Yeah.
We need to remember that MJ led this pretty clearly in the first go round, and so. For Royce to come this close, he's come a long way. Abby made points earlier about the money mismatch, and so Hegar's got so much money to spend, and has spent it probably in the right places to pick up votes for the Democrats. I mentioned earlier a lot of Democratic runoffs in San Antonio, South Texas areas that were going to be stronger Hegar boxes than West boxes, and she's probably spent her money well there.
But I'll remind you that during the primary, Royce West didn't get into the primary till right at the end. And he had some precincts that came through for him. So at this point tonight, I wouldn't write him off. But Hegar has gotten a pretty good lead.
Yeah, indeed she has. And a quick note to our viewers, we are going to hear from Royce West at 9:15, maybe a few minutes before that. And then at 9:20 on this feed also, we expect to hear hopefully from MJ Hegar. No candidate is having the traditional old school ballroom at a hotel or a venue and things like that. Everything's virtual now because of the environment we are in with COVID. One thing Vince Leibowitz said tonight, Abby, is that Vince Leibowitz is a political consultant for Royce West, and he came on a feed we were watching a few moments ago and said that he doesn't know, the campaign doesn't know if they will have a final tally tonight.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, Bernadine, you heard it too. Really? That's my reaction.
Yeah.
Let me just put it this. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead,
Bernadine.
No, I was surprised when he said that.
I will just chime in, and I just want to underscore how upended the voting process is because of COVID. And there are primaries from 3 weeks ago in New York State that they haven't even begun counting. So it's just something that we are in a really unpredictable moment. New York votes very differently than Texas, but I think all viewers of this have gotten used to historical patterns, and normalcy don't really apply to 2020.
That's a good point. And you know what, Abby, Bud brought up the money mismatch. How in the world did MJ Hegar, with a 10-1 lead with money, end up with a race this close with Royce West in a field of 12 candidates when she was the lead vote getter and had a heck of a lot more money than anyone else?
Well, I think DFW is one of the largest media markets in the state. It is the largest. And so Royce West has been on the news and people know him there. Additionally, he had the backing of practically every prominent Democrat in the state. And those people know how to get out the vote in their districts and to support a candidate. I also think he had probably big support from African Americans. And so it is really a fascinating thing. But with the money, MJ Hegar outraised him, and we all know that. But she has not come anywhere near what Congressman Beto O'Rourke raised 2 years ago. Whoever is the nominee is going to have to raise a ton of money for the general. And we are in a very late runoff. We are 6 weeks later than normal. And this is big time for Texas Democrats. And this money has got to come in fast because John Cornyn's got 13 or 14, probably a lot more than that because I haven't seen his latest filing, but it's something to consider.
Yeah, I think the cash on hand he has is $14.5 million, and I think the cash on hand for MJ, if she does win tonight, is $1.6 million. But
Abby,
go ahead.
I was going to ask Abby. I mean, don't you think MJ is going to be on her own raising money? A lot of the local money, they want the state money to go to Texas House races, turn the House blue. MJ is going to have to raise her own money.
Well, she might still have the Democratic Senatorial Committee who gave her some money. But I don't think if this race turns out to be this close or whatever, I don't think she's going to raise or Royce West will raise as near amount of the money that they're going to need to be Cornyn.
Bernadine, let me ask you a question about African American support. I think you or Abby mentioned that and how Royce has clearly gotten it out, especially in light of the protest over George Floyd's death. Let's say that Royce does not win tonight and MJ does win tonight. Can she get any of that African American support on her side? Will those same voters be inclined to go and cast a ballot in that race?
I think that the African American voter is going to the polls because remember, they're going to go vote Trump. So Trump is going to bring out that African American vote. But the question is, since they don't have a straight ticket vote, will they vote for Hegar? Because she has not excited the African American vote. So that's a question. Now, I think that you're going to see a large turnout because they're going to be out voting their vote, and most of them are anti-Trumps. And he's going to turn out that vote. But whether or not they vote and but whether or not they vote for MJ is a huge question.
And Abby and Bud, if this race, the race looks super close, does MJ come out of this and say she's the winner? Does she come out of this weaker or an easier target for Republicans in the Cornyn campaign?
Jason, I think to respond first to what Bernadine said, the question is, will Latinos vote? Latinos are not turning out that strong. They're not showing that much excitement about Joe Biden on the top of the ticket. Will Latinos vote for a Biden and Hegar at the top of the ticket, Democratic ticket? Will there be? I mean, I don't expect there to be the usual turnout of Latinos on the Republican side that vote at the top of the ticket, but John Cornyn's capable of gathering some Latino vote. The question is not will the African American voters vote to the Democrats. It's where will the Latinos vote? Will they support the Democrats and turn out in the numbers the Democrats need in Texas?
And Bud, though, back to what I asked as well, too, great points. But if this is a super close race, does MJ come out weakened at all because she, got 51% of the vote as opposed to a wider margin?
Abby, I'll let you have your swing, but I'm going to guess that she builds on the fact that she's been running like a house of fire all year long, raising money. And just like Ted Cruz, who won his July runoff and went on to victory in the fall, I mean, I think she's got momentum going in the middle of July, and Cornyn's kind of back on his heels right now. And I think, it's only a few more months till that November election, so I just think she keeps on sprinting. Abby, I'd love to know what you think.
primaries can go both ways. And if we think back to the presidential level, the 2008 Barack Obama-Hillary Clinton primary, which was miserable for the party, actually made Obama a better candidate, and it built the party nationally. But then you get to 2016 of Hillary versus Bernie Sanders, and that ended up being a very destructive primary. And so I think the jury's still out on this one. I interviewed Hegar last week, and she was kind of non-committal on whether the two candidates could come together and campaign for whoever the winner is. But wounds tend to get healed. But what I think is the most important, or the way I see this race coming online in the fall, and it has less to do with who the candidate is, and it has more to do with the fact that of Joe Biden's coattails and how real is this with all the polls we keep seeing. And additionally, under the ballot with the U.S. House races and the state ledge, can they squeeze John Cornyn? And I think that's the central question in October.
And make sure I understood you right. Did MJ Hegar tell you that she wondered if her opponent would come together behind her?
I asked her effectively, and I don't remember her exact words, would you campaign for him if he wins, or would you want him to campaign if you win? And she didn't directly answer it. There wasn't a very clear affirmative in that. So there may be some wounds, and these things tend to get resolved after the election's over, but it was a pretty rough campaign.
Yeah, that just shows you how contentious this race is, Bernadine.
Yes, but I still think in November, Democrats in the state of Texas will go to the polls. Look at the early vote. They're going to the polls because their motivation is to defeat Trump. It's not about MJ. It's not about Royce. It's about defeating Trump. Now, whether or not they can, how much they can motivate the Hispanics or how much they can motivate African Americans, that would be a plus. But you're not going to have to motivate the Democrats too much because they're going to the polls to vote Trump. Yeah. Trump is at the top of the ticket, and now who has to worry is Cornyn, whether or not Trump is going to bring him down somewhat in that poll, in that voting situation. But Democrats are going to the polls.
Yeah, the question is turnout, obviously. The Democrats think that the primary runoff and then the Super Tuesday turnout is indicative of what they might see come November. But, you know, we saw the Dallas Morning News poll a couple days ago showing that Biden was leading Trump in this state by 5 points. I've talked to Democrats who think, I'm not sure how accurate that thing really is. Maybe if it was a little closer, I might buy it. What are y'all hearing about the results of that poll? Because that's the first one, to my knowledge, showing Trump actually losing in this state so far. And the asterisks, as Abby always says, we're a long ways away from the election, so a lot can happen.
Well, I still look at this primary, the primary and the runoff. Yeah. The runoff, historically, you don't get numbers out, people going to the polls during a runoff.
Abby, you were about, go ahead.
No,
Bernie,
I'm sorry. No, let her. I didn't realize that she was getting ready to put in.
Go ahead, Abby. What are you hearing from Democrats on this? I mean, is there that much concern that Biden might win or Hegar really might win this state?
It is not beyond the realm of possibility. Here's the thing, though. Democrats can win while losing Texas on the national scale. If that poll is even 8 points off in the if Trump is even narrowly winning, Republicans may have to shift resources into the state to save it. And those are resources that will not be spent in other states. Additionally, you've got U.S. Senate candidates all over the country who are Democrats raising $14 million a quarter. Those guys might be able to take care of their own races and not need help from Washington Democrats. And the Washington Democrats may have money to put into Texas. And so it's actually a term called triage in politics, where at least potentially on the Republican side, they may have to cut off some areas in order to save Texas. And that is a win for Democrats, even if they don't come out with any electoral votes or a Senate seat.
Good point, Bud. I don't want to date you. You've seen when the Democrats ruled this state. You've seen when the Republicans have ruled this state. Where are we right now on the timeline?
You know, I think after the failures of, I guess it was 2014, I predicted that 2022 was when the state might swing back and elect some Democrats again. I don't know that we're any further ahead of that schedule. I saw the polls that would rely on a lot of new voters, because I don't know any people who voted for Ted Cruz 2 years ago who now plan to vote for Joe Biden. I just haven't met any of those people. And some of those people, Beto lost by 5 points. And so some of those people have to flip over that voted for Cruz to Democrat in order for Joe to have any sort of a lead. When we're talking about the ticket, though, and going back to, we were talking about MJ Hegar, does she have appeal with suburban women, the voters that Democrats have coveted that have been flipping over in droves from Republican to Democrat? Is MJ Hegar a potential pull for those suburban women to flip over to the Democratic Party and maybe to the Democratic ticket? That may be a plus for Biden. It still gets.
Let's do this. We have Royce West with us right now. He is
I was 12 years old, and now I just graduated high school, and I have been able to reform not only my own community, but help to push reform at the state level.
How are you doing, Jason?
So today we've kind of talked about why we're
doing well. We hear some other stuff in the background here too.
But today I want to tell you guys why we need to rise.
Let me ask our controller, and Brandon and Sandra, are you hearing stuff in the background?
For example, in 2005, Cornyn was 9 U.S. senators voted who was opposition to John McCain.
Senator, we're hearing stuff in the background. Are you guys, is that on your end, monitoring something?
And when you think about that, it makes sense why he allowed in his own state for
Taylor, let's do this. Taylor's one of our producers. I'll have Taylor mute everybody on our end on the Zoom call. And Senator, thanks for the time.
Have to take care of someone who's 2, and they've never even met each other, and they're just doing the best they can with what they have.
Okay.
That just shows his character.
All right, there we go. Senator, thank you for the time. We'll just take a few minutes of it here before the 10 o'clock news begins. You're down, it looks like 31,000 votes so far here. Where in the world are you going to make those up right now, sir?
Well, in terms of Dallas County, I don't know which votes are still outstanding from Election Day. Same thing with Harris County.
John called him a sellout.
And
John
some of
Cornyn has proved that he's
outlying counties. So like Fort Bend County also.
All right, we're going to reset one thing here. This is the COVID environment we are in, guys. We would normally be in a studio and things that we have done for decades, but we are trying to figure this out as we kind of fumble through Zoom and Skype and this whole new world we live in. So I think we have the senator back here. Senator, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
You sound great. I don't hear anything else. The question was, it looks like that the results show that you're 31,000 votes down right now. Where are you going to make those up?
I'm hoping to make them up in the urban counties.
And I think I heard Vince Leibowitz, your political consultant, say that Harris County is still half the votes remain out there. Is that right?
I have not had a chance to kind of look at what votes are out there. I know that there were probably in terms of the votes that came in today, there's probably about 50,000 votes that came in from Harris County. And I don't know how many votes actually came in to Dallas County or Tarrant County.
What you said, Senator, I know you were on a call with some of your supporters at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock. What were you telling them?
Number one, I was telling them thank you for helping me go through this, that we, frankly, the story of David and Goliath, but instead of having one Goliath, I had 2 Goliaths that we had to fight off. You saw the enormous amount of money that was placed on television and in media by both Hegar's campaign and also Cornyn's campaign. And so from that vantage point, we had to fight 2 Goliaths. And I told them thank you for everything, and that the night is still young, and the fact of the matter is, by the time all these votes are cast, that we will be victorious.
And you said that the night is still young. Which urban, suburban counties do you think that might have votes that are yet to be counted?
I think that you've got to look at Tarrant County, and I don't know what the latest is on Tarrant County, Dallas County, and also Harris County. Those are the counties.
How about Bexar County? That's obviously where MJ is from, and Travis County is where she's from. Bexar County as well. Are you surprised of your performance in those 2 counties?
Jason, I did not hear you. Would you please state that again?
Yeah, just curious about your thoughts on how you performed in Travis and in Bexar counties as well.
Okay, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Let me try it. Can you hear me any better, Senator?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Will you support and will you campaign for whoever wins this race tonight?
MJ and I, if she wants to sit down and visit about some issues that I think that are important and we can come to an agreement on that, yes, I will.
What are those issues?
I will visit with her about those issues.
Are there things out there that I might be missing that are sticking points between you two? Because I know it has been a contentious campaign, Senator.
I will leave it to MJ to decide whether or not she wants to sit down and visit, and I will voice those issues to her. And then after we meet, we will hopefully resolve those issues, and same vice versa. If she has issues with me, I'd be more than happy to sit down and visit with her about those issues in private, as opposed to try to do it publicly, and see whether or not we'll be able to resolve issues and then work for one another.
Understand. And do you expect that we'll have a final tally tonight on this race?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest with you. That's what we're trying to figure out. Hopefully we will have a final tally on this race tonight. Carol and I have been working on this since July 22nd, 2019, and that's been like every day. And so there needs to be some finality to a race that was supposed to take place in May. So we'll know that who the Democratic nominee is.
All right. Senator Royce West, good luck to you tonight, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. You guys take care.
Thank you. Senator West speaking to us there. Now we have MJ Hegar, who is speaking to her supporters. Let's get switched over to that virtual feed, since that's how all these are happening.
Public health crisis before the pandemic, but even with all this on our plates, and I know how much people are struggling, and if you have kiddos like I do, every day is Teacher Appreciation Day. And still, you find time to support this campaign. It's humbling, and it renews my effort every day to get out there and kick serious ass for you. So thank you so much. Now listen, votes are still being counted. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We are seeing some organizations call the race. We are feeling very confident about the results that we've seen so far. And I'm sure, that you guys know that you've heard me say this before too. We're going to do this. We are going to get people access to healthcare. We're going to get kids out of cages. We're going to do something about the gun violence epidemic. I can't do it all by myself, for sure. We are running a solidly coordinated campaign. I'm going to reach out and ask you guys right now to please seek out local down ballot candidates like Kayla and give them your support, because they are worthy of that support. They are running great campaigns. They are standing with me. They're standing for the things that we've all been fighting for so long. And I am so confident we're going to get the results that we deserve in this state, but I can't do it alone. It's got to be everybody jumping on board. So please seek out and support those candidates. In addition, we've got 38 electoral votes up for grabs here, and Biden is ahead in Texas. We're going to turn the direction of this entire country from right here in Texas. And let's be honest, that's exactly how it should be, right? Because we're Texas. So I'm very excited. We're going to defeat Cornyn. We're going to get the action that we need finally. He has voted time and time again with his corporate donors and his, their profit margins, putting those profit margins ahead of our best interest as his constituents. I'm no stranger to tough fights, y'all. I am a get shit done kind of Texas mom. And I greatly appreciate y'all being here with me tonight, and y'all being here throughout the last year and a half of this campaign as we've driven tens of thousands of miles across the state and then transitioned to virtually. If you have not been inspired yet to volunteer with this campaign, please reach out, ask us more questions. Please reach out and talk to the volunteers and chat with them about their experiences. Because frankly, we have a lot of work to do, and we can do it, but we can't do it without you. So stand with me as we take on Cornyn. The general election, we've been in the general the whole time, but frankly, it starts tomorrow. The attacks from Senator Cornyn, he can't decide if he wants to call me, too moderate or too liberal. And he's all over the place. He's off the rails because he knows he's in trouble. Stand with me and let's raise in one solid voice to John Cornyn. pack it up, Buttercup, because your time is done. We want that seat back. It belongs to Texas. It doesn't belong to DC. You've become DC, and it's time that we return this seat back to a Texan. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to my team for putting this on and for working so hard with me over this last year and a half as we have put this campaign together and built this grassroots.
All right. I was waving there to let our guys know we just have a couple minutes left. I want to go a round robin here since we gave both candidates roughly the same amount of time. Of course, MJ was doing a press statement there and some salty language. Just if you know, been following MJ's campaign, that may not, probably should not surprise you at all. More than 57% of the precincts reporting statewide now. MJ Hegar leads Royce West by about 35,000 votes. A couple minutes left here. The thing that struck me, we heard from both candidates there in the biggest race. And Bernadine, I want to start with you on this. These two don't really seem eye to eye at all. And when I asked Royce whether he would support and campaign for whoever wins tonight, he said he would want to sit down and speak with her first. On what issues, he wouldn't say. Does that surprise you?
Well, somewhat. Because at the end of the day, the candidates are going to have to get together if they want to get that seat. And for him to say it the way that he did was surprising. But as Abby said earlier, even MJ is not committing to working with him if he wins. But if they're going to take that seat, they're going to have to get together. But MJ seems she's uplifted. She seems as if she's going to win.
She does seem like she has the energy and momentum. Yeah. The question, though, is, Abby, will the candidates work together? You've seen a lot of these. You watched a lot of them. Do you think that there may be, room for these two to get on the same page? Abby, you got you muted there. And Bud, make sure you go ahead and come off mute too before we end. I think we did that. So
Am
go
I
ahead,
now?
Abby. Got you there.
I think election night and the final week or two of the campaign is a very charged time and people are feeling raw. I think it's a question in the next week. Maybe we'll see. But Bernadine's right. They need every vote they can get and every person campaigning they can get.
And when I asked Bud to take himself off mute, he
took myself completely off, and I'm back.
His brand new iPhone took a tumble there. Bud, what do you think? Final word here. Are you surprised at what Royce West said? And do you think there is room for these two candidates to come together and be a unified front on the Democratic side?
Royce is obviously very resentful. We've seen that in the final days of the campaign. That was a great little snippet of Hegar. She says she's a get-it-done kind of mom, to clean up her language a little bit. But the question we don't know is exactly what she wants to get done. She wants to be an agent of change, but we don't know exactly how she would work in the United States Senate. That's something that we're going to want to learn more about as the campaign goes on.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will. She mentioned healthcare. She mentioned kids in cages, things like that, some of the border issues that so many of us have watched. Bernadine Steptoe, thanks so much for your time. Abby Livingston from D.C. with us and Bud Kennedy from Fort Worth. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We're back in a half hour, though, for WFAA News at 10. We hope to hear from the candidates and maybe have a few updated numbers on this and see how it turns out. For now, though, thanks for watching our primary runoff coverage. Take care.